Alright, welcome back to math. Here is your table of contents. You're adding and subtracting mixed numbers. I think it's going to take one page. It may take more. Don't forget, you can pause, go forward, and go backward as you need to. There's your page. Make sure to have add and subtract mixed numbers on the top and whatever page number you're on so you can find it easily. Before we actually start adding and subtracting these numbers, I would like for you to, this is just review from the last few years of math. I want to see if you can change the improper fraction of 21/5 to a mixed number. And number 2, I want you to try and change 62/12 to a mixed number. And then number 3, I want you to change the mixed number of 3 and 5/12 to an improper fraction. And same thing with number 4, 5 and 3/4 to an improper fraction. Try, pause it, work on that, and then we'll go over it. So let's not forget 21/5. That division, or excuse me, that fraction line or fraction bar, or whatever you want to call it, it just means to divide. So 5 is how many parts it takes to make a whole thing. Well, we have 21 parts. So 21/5 really means 21 divided by 5. 5 goes into 21 4 times, because 5 times 4 is 20. We would subtract with 1 left over. So this means it fit into their 4 whole times. We have 1 left over. And how many does it take to make a whole? 5 parts to make a whole. Okay? Notice that there's your whole number. Here's your remainder, which is your numerator. And here is your denominator. Alright, let's go to the second one. So again, it's just 62/12 really just means 62 divided by 12. Always put Norman in the house, put your donkey on the outside. 12 obviously doesn't fit into 6, so we'll put a 0. And we're just going to skip count by 12s to see how many times it fits into 62. 12, 24, 36, 48, 60. So that's 5 times that it fits in there. 12 times 5 is 60. Subtract, you have 2 left over. So our denominator is still a 12. Our remainder, we had 2 left over, and it fit into there 5 whole times. Some of you are already recognizing that you could simplify that, because 2 and 12 are both even, and they have 2 in common. So you would divide by 2, divide by 2, be 1/6, 5 and 1/6. Alright, so let's go to number 3. We got to take this mixed number and we have to turn it into an improper fraction. So we want to know how many actual parts we have, total amount of parts. Okay, well, how many parts does it take to make a whole? First, it takes 12. And we all know that about denominators. So this 3 right here means that there are 3 items, and each one of those items is worth 12. It's got 12 parts in there. So all we have to do is multiply 12 times 3, which is 36. And then we have 5 extra parts. So we would add the 5 to the 36. So that would be 41 over 12. So we have 41 pieces, and it takes 12 pieces to make one whole thing. Number 4, so our denominator, how many parts does it take to make a whole, is 4. We're just going to keep that. And then I like to call it cartwheel. Not 100% sure why, but so it takes 4 parts to make a whole. How many holes do we have? We have 5. I'm going to multiply 4 times 5, because I've got this one, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got 5 holes, and each one of those has 4 parts in it. Okay, so 4 times 5 is 20. And then I have 1, 2, just 3 extra parts. 3 extra parts. So how many total do we have? Let's not put that there. Let's put it right there. 20 plus 3, so that would be 23 fourths. So just like when we were adding and subtracting fractions last week, they must have a common denominator. Absolutely must be the same size pieces. Okay, and that's what denominators are. Same size pieces. Alright, so we have to absolutely have common denominator. It does not work if we do not do that. If we always make the mixed numbers, like number 3 and 4 that you did at the beginning, if we always make them into an improper fraction, you will never make a mistake. Okay? There are times that we have an option to leave them as a mixed number when we're adding. But if every single time you make them improper, you will not make a mistake. And like I said, always, always, always have to have a common denominator when adding and subtracting. So here's our first problem. 2/5 plus 3 and 5/6. Get that written. Pause it if you need to, like I said. So first thing we need to do is make that mixed number, 3 and 5/6, into an improper fraction. Our denominator is still going to be a 6 until we change it later. How many parts does it take to make a whole? That's what the denominator means. It takes 6 parts to make a whole thing. Well, we have 3 whole things, and each one is worth 6 parts. So we would multiply 6 times 3, which is 18. And then there are 5 extra parts. That's the numerator. And 18 plus 5 is what? 23. Okay? So looking at our denominators, we have a 5 and a 6. Obviously, we can't add or subtract that right now because they have to be the same. So we need to figure out what they have in common. If we skip count by both of them, where would we end up at? So if you just skip count by 5s, because that's an easy one, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. So have you heard anything in there that if we skip count by 6, we would get the same thing? 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. All right, 30. I heard 30 twice, so that means our new denominator is going to be 30. Just change them both to 30. So how did we get from a denominator of 5 to a denominator of 6, or excuse me, a denominator of 30? You would have multiplied by 6. Remember, treat everybody fairly, numerator and denominator. So whatever you do to the denominator, you do to the numerator. Multiply it by 6. And 6 times 2 is 12. All right, so how do we get from 6 to 30? 6 times 5 is 30. So we have to do the same thing to 23. I could probably do that in my head, 23 times 5, but it'd probably take me longer. So just do 23 times 5, because you got to treat the numerator the same. 5 times 3 is 15. Carry that 1. 5 times 2 is 10. Plus the 1 is 11. So it's 115. So it's a lot of work already. We haven't even started adding our fractions yet. So remember, denominator stays the same. We don't add that. We never, ever, ever add denominators. But numerators we do. So we just have 115 plus 12, or 12 plus 115. It doesn't matter. 115 plus 12. 5 and 2 is 7. 1 and 1 is 2. So we have 127. 127 thirtieths. All right? That's called improper because the numerator is larger, excuse me, is larger than the denominator. So that fraction line just means to divide, because we're going to put our answer in mixed number form. So we now have 127. Always put Norman in the house. 127 divided by 30. So we can estimate this. 30 would be 30, and 127, you can estimate it honestly at 120 or 130. It doesn't really matter. So then you can just skip count by 30s, which is the same thing as skip counting by 3s with a 0 on the end. So you go 30, 60, 90, 120. So if we put 4 more onto 120, it's not going to work. So that is 4. 4 times. That'll be 0, 0, 4. 3 times 4 is 12 with that 0 on the end. Subtract, we have 7 left over. So our denominator was 30, right? This right here. Our denominator was 30. I'm going to write it up here where we started the problem. 30. Our whole number, it went in there 4 whole times. 4 whole times with 7 left over. That's 7 of them left over. That's going to go right there. So 4 and 7 thirtieths. I don't know if you can see. There you go. Alright, so it's a lot of work for one problem. I get it. But if you break it down step by step, then it's not overwhelming. So our second problem is 7 1/3 minus 1 1/2. So what I want you to do right now is notice that those are mixed numbers, and we have to change them to sorry, I'm drawing a blank right here. Change them to improper fraction. Hopefully you took the time to do that. I forgot to tell you to pause. Alright, so the first one, 7 1/3, it takes 3 parts to make a whole. You have 7 holes, so I did 3 times 7 is 20. I should have written that right there, not 21. It's 20, and then you add the extra part, so that's 20 1/3. And the second one, it takes 2 parts to make a whole. Well, you have 1 whole. So you do 2 times 1, which is 2, and then just add the extra part, which is 1. So now we have to get a common denominator. We're subtracting, can't subtract if the denominators aren't the same. So pause it now and try to come up with your common denominator. And have your problem ready to subtract. So if you change the denominator, take care of that numerator also. Alright, if you skip counted in your head both numbers, you would have realized that they had 6 in common. So how did we get from 3 to 6? We just multiplied by 2. You have to do the same thing to numerator and denominator. And then how did we get from 2 to 6? We multiplied by 3. So whatever you did to that denominator, you have to do the numerator. Okay, so now we just subtract, right? Our denominator is still a 6. And 42 minus 9, well, 42 minus 10 is 32, but it's 1 more than that, so it's got to be 33. Okay, so now you have 33/6. We can't turn in an answer like that. That fraction line means to divide. So turn that into a mixed number. You can pause it now. 33 divided by 6, you should have gotten 5 with a remainder of 3. Denominator stays at 6. So your whole number is 5 whole times with 3 left over. If we just look at 3/6, 5 and 3/6, isn't 3 half of 6? 3/6 is the same thing as half. So really this is just 5 1/2. So that is your answer up here. You're probably a little concerned. On the next video is your assignment. But I will have, I'll do maybe 3 problems on there with you.